Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the CD guy, Johnny Z here. Thank you so much for tuning back into the channel, and today I'm going to be counting down 8 legendary rock and metal bands who should retire from touring sooner rather than later. I do want to make a quick note here that this is a list of musicians that should retire from the touring aspect of their careers, but I'm not going to say that these artists should no longer make studio albums or anything like that because, you know, anybody can sound good in the studio these days, and if these bands still want to create and make new music, who should stop them? But from a touring aspect, these are bands that no longer do justice to their name, I don't think, anymore, and should just retire from the touring aspect of their careers. And just one more thing here, this list is strictly my opinion, just like every video here on the channel, and, you know, this is not meant to be disrespectful in any way to any of these musicians or these bands, because they've all made great contributions throughout their careers, but these are bands that I just feel are no longer doing justice to their success or their fan base by touring live these days, and should simply retire from that aspect of their careers. So, again, no disrespect intended here, just my personal opinions, and this coming from a fan's perspective. That said, kicking us off here with my number 8, I'm going to go with Quiet Riot, a band that established themselves in the early 80s upon the release of Metal Health, but never quite reached the same level of success in their careers, and now all these years later find themselves with no original members, playing very small venues, not really able to cultivate a large crowd anymore, and it's a band that really comes off as a shell of their former selves, in my opinion. And, you know, I talked about how they rose to prominence upon the release of this album here from 1983, Metal Health, but they also released some really solid albums after that, with Kevin DuBrow on lead vocals. But now, after his passing and the passing of Frankie Banali as well, the band really come off as a tribute act more than anything else, in my opinion. So definitely a group that I think should cut their losses and simply retire from the touring aspect of their careers. They could still make studio albums if they want to, but not quite sure if the interest level is really there anymore for Quiet Riot to continue to tour, because, like I said, it comes off as more of a tribute act than anything else at this point. So coming in at number 8 here, I'm going to go with whatever's left of Quiet Riot. Back to hair metal here for my number 7 on the list. I'm going to go with Stephen Pearcy of Ratt. Stephen Pearcy would go on to become one of the most recognizable faces of the hair metal movement, fronting Ratt during their most successful period in the 80s. But now, years later, after legal disputes over the Ratt name, and there even being 2 Ratts for a number of years, Stephen Pearcy should consider hanging things up and enjoying retirement life at this point. Over the years, we've seen his live performances deteriorate, almost to the point now where it's hard to watch. He recently made headlines, I believe last year, for some of his poor live performances, which, like I said, can be pretty hard to watch, especially considering the work that he did with Ratt in the 80s, which I tend to really enjoy. You know, he did great work with Ratt, and now it's kind of hard to see how much he has deteriorated in a live setting. Somebody who was recently talked about maybe doing a one more final Ratt album with the remaining original members of the band, but at this point, I'm not quite sure what the interest level in that kind of an album would be. It would be interesting for sure, but he's definitely somebody who I think should consider retiring from the live performances from the stage here, which I know is no easy decision for any musician to come to, but I think Stephen Pearcy definitely should consider it. So coming in at number 7 here, I'm going to go with Stephen Pearcy of Ratt. Very similarly to what I was talking about with Stephen Pearcy, coming in at number 6, I'm going to go with Dokken, another great hair metal performer who has deteriorated in a live setting over the years to the point now where it's very hard to listen to his voice. Somebody who used to have a very strong voice, definitely one of the best from the hair metal era, but now it's impossible for him to get through a concert without having to rely on audience participation to fill in the gaps and hit the notes that he can no longer sing, which is unfortunate. Very difficult to watch the Dokken deterioration over the years, and he's somebody who, just like Stephen Pearcy, had garnered attention for some of his poor live performances earlier this year, leading to the point where the fans were clamoring for a Dokken retirement because, you know, he really doesn't have much of a singing voice left, and like I said, it's really hard to watch. So next to number 6, I'm going to go with Dokken, somebody who used to have one of the strongest voices in hair metal, but now barely has any voice left. Top 5 now, and this one pains me to say it because they're one of my favorite bands of all time, but I'm going to go with Deep Purple. Deep Purple were a band that I saw in 2017. They were on their Hall of Fame tour. They were on a bill with Alice Cooper and Edgar Winter, and they were the headlining act, so already going to be difficult to follow up Alice Cooper, but we were pretty excited to see Deep Purple, and then when they hit the stage, it was just a very poor performance, very underwhelming stuff by them, so much so that people left in the middle of the set, and there was no encore either. The crowd very disengaged from what Deep Purple was doing, and I myself have to say, I was very disappointed by their performance. A band that I usually am very entertained by their world-class musicianship, but during this particular performance, they seemed slow and plodding and put together a really boring set, in my opinion, which was very out of character for them, and it's disappointing to see how one of my favorite live bands had deteriorated at this point. And, you know, I'm a fan of a lot of their 21st century works and some of their more recent albums, which I think are really fun and great listens, but when it comes to them performing live, they clearly are not what they used to be, and it's just kind of hard to sit through a Deep Purple set list at this point in 2022, and that was 5 years ago when I saw them. So, you know, imagine how they are now live. You know, it's just kind of disappointing to me, and it pains me to say it because I do love Deep Purple, but their live performance at this point really does suffer, I think, and a lot of it does have to be attributed to their age. Ian Pace on the drums is still a great drummer, definitely the most youthful of all the members in the band at this point, but when it comes to their live performances these days, just very underwhelming and disappointing for me. So coming in at number 5 here, I'm going to go with Deep Purple. Next at number 4 is another one of my all-time favorite performers, that is Ozzy Osbourne, coming in at number 4 here on the list, and this one is simply from a health perspective. Ozzy has dealt with a lot of health issues over the last 5 years or so, and, you know, when it comes to that, I'm not quite sure if embarking on another world tour is in his best interest. Ozzy will resume his No More Tours 2 tour in 2023, or at least those are the dates that are currently still standing, so not quite sure if Ozzy is going to go through with touring once again, but if he does decide to continue the tour in 2023, I'm just concerned from a health perspective if that's the best decision for him. Somebody who has gone through a lot of health issues over the last few years, and not quite sure if a retirement tour is something that is in his best interest at this point. Of course, Ozzy has been on a number of retirement tours between his solo run and Black Sabbath, so take any Ozzy retirement with a grain of salt. And again, this list is simply from a live perspective. In the studio, Ozzy's releasing another studio album, which is very exciting, coming out in September, called Patient Number 9, so super excited for that. But for Ozzy to be going out on a world tour in 2023 might not be the best thing for him, so coming in at number 4 here, I'm going to go with Ozzy Osbourne, somebody who has dealt with a lot of health issues, and at this point, nobody would blame him for enjoying retirement life and discontinuing all touring. Breaking into the top 3 now, coming in at number 3, I'm going to go with Motley Crue. Motley Crue are currently on the stadium tour alongside Def Leppard, Poison, and Joan Jett, and you know, this is something that people have been calling for years, and Motley Crue, of course, have been shrouded in controversy for decades, but they're a band that have enjoyed success on the stadium tour, you know, but judging from some of the live performances from Vince Neil and his solo work in 2021, definitely leads me to believe that there is some smoke and mirrors here with the Motley Crue set to kind of make it seem a lot more clean and professional than it is, because Vince Neil is obviously not the vocalist that he used to be, and also Tommy Lee was recently caught using backing tracks for his drumming. Vince Neil also busted for using a teleprompter to read off lyrics, which not really a big deal, honestly. A lot of bands do that when it comes to lyrics off a teleprompter, but very disappointing that Tommy Lee was caught using backing tracks on his drums, and Motley Crue are a band that have even admitted to using backing tracks in the past, so that's very disappointing and does lead me to believe that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on here for this live set. But they're definitely a band that I think should take the stadium tour as an opportunity to ride off into the sunset on a high note here and consider hanging things up following the conclusion of this tour. But they'll probably continue to tour because the stadium tour has drawn so well. But I definitely think they're a band that should consider retirement sooner than later, because they're a shell of what they used to be in a live setting here, and clearly have relied on a lot of smoke and mirrors over the years as well. So coming in at number 3, I'm going to go with Motley Crue. Coming in at number 2, I'm going to go with Bon Jovi, somebody who has recently made headlines for some really poor live performances, showing off a much more deteriorated voice, showing that his vocal abilities have diminished over the years. Somebody who used to have a much more powerful voice now struggles to get through Living on a Prayer, and, you know, on his most recent tour, it was pretty unfortunate. I've listened to some of it on YouTube, and definitely his voice has diminished. It's hard to listen to, definitely hard to get through, and at the same time, though, it is admirable for bands who have experienced diminishing voices to not go out and use backing tracks, which, like I said, that's very admirable, but at the same time, fans are not getting their money's worth from a Bon Jovi concert anymore. Of course, he'll continue to tour, and he'll continue to draw, and again, I'm very glad he's not resorting to using backing tracks and still giving an honest show, but also his vocals have diminished to the point now where he's a shell of what he used to be, so coming in at number 2 here, I'm going to go with Bon Jovi. And finally, coming in at number 1 here, I'm going to go with Kiss. It's just so disappointing to see what has happened to Kiss over the years, and now in 2022, Paul Stanley has resorted to using backing tracks here, and has gotten caught a number of times. It's something they've done for years, but in 2022, he's gotten caught so many times at this point. They're getting very lazy about hiding it, and it's just so disingenuous and downright disgraceful, in my opinion. It's very much ripping off the fans who come there for an honest show and get this facade, smoke and mirrors going on here during the Kiss Live set. The Kiss Live show in 2022 is full of facades throughout, so it's very disappointing, and obviously the band are well past their prime at this point, but they keep on adding dates to this End of the Road tour, which I theorize will never actually end, this so-called retirement tour, which, for me, I just kind of think that it's a ploy to increase ticket sales, and they have no intention of actually retiring because dates just keep getting announced, But Paul Stanley, his vocals have diminished to the point now where he is not even trying to hide using backing vocals. It's really disappointing, and for a lot of the picks on this list here that I talked about the diminishing vocal abilities, it is very admirable that they have not resorted to using backing tracks in their live set, so I do appreciate that, and again, there is no excuse for using backing tracks no matter how much your voice has diminished here, but for Paul Stanley, it's gotten so bad now that he's not even trying to hide it, which is beyond disappointing, and I've made a number of videos over the past year talking about Kiss and their live performances in 2022, so those are out there if you want to check them out, but very disappointing. I'm so disappointed in Kiss, one of my all-time favorite bands that have stooped to the new low here using backing tracks, and it's just very disappointing for me to see Kiss at this stage of their career resorting to these kind of tactics, so they're a band that I think should retire as soon as possible, but again, the End of the Road tour just continues to rack up more dates and more dates, so I don't think that's going to happen at this point. Coming in at number 1 here, I gotta go with Kiss. So that wraps up this rant video, counting down 8 legendary rock and metal bands that should retire from touring as soon as possible, which should be visible right over here. If you enjoyed this video, or if you agree with me, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel down below, turn on the bell for notifications to be notified of a new upload, and let me know down in the comments below, did you agree with me? Did you disagree with me? And what are some other bands you would like to see retire sooner than later because they just can't cut it in a live setting anymore? Let me know your opinions down in the comments below. I'd be very interested in hearing what you guys have to say. And until next time, it's the CD guy, Johnny Z, signing off. Take care, everybody.